The Pieces Lie Where They Fell by Evil Humor. Edited and co-authored by Anon E. Mouse Jr. Read for you by My Name is R. Chapter 14. Regal Pants and Gentle Step. Part 1. Regal Pants. It had been chaos since Regal got that black message telling him that his father, Aurorum Pants, had passed away. He had locked upper middle second cadenza to Magi Gate down, sealing it with the seal spell of the day, sending off a message to his squad mates that were enjoying the honor festival to return to the guardhouse before locking the door to the guardhouse itself and running back to his family manor to deal with his father's death. His family servants were busy dealing with the countless messages appearing, with a number of ponies arriving to either give their condolences or press him on matters his father left lying around, when Regal finally reached his family's mansion. Those sharks hounded him for details and payment as he bounded up each step to his father's chamber, with the doctors still milling around, waiting for him. Regal pushed them to the side, tears in his eyes as he forced the door open, to see his father lying in his bed. Regal could understand the term resting at peace now. The lines of stress and life washed away from his father's face. He seemed so serene, and no doubt was with mother and the rest of their departed family in the fields of Elysium. Leaning to kiss his father's forehead, while saying prayers of the Lady and Holy Celestia and Luna, Regal allowed himself a moment more to mourn in public, before collecting himself. He had to deal with the transfer of power from one head of the house to another, as well as plan a funeral. He began barking orders to his servants to pay the doctors and send them on their way. He told the solicitors and debt collectors he would tend to them later. He thanked those coming to pay their respects. He began to leaf through the telegraph book and the papers they had kept when his mother had died, to see if the ponies who took care of funeral procedures could do the same on such short notice, as well as being on the honor festival. It was a blur of events for Regal, his mind leaping from one detail to the next, when there was a sudden hammering on the downstairs door. He frowned, looking to his servant for an answer, as there shouldn't be any pony able to knock that loudly. Before the maid could answer, or Regal could ask her, the doors opened up, and he heard the precise sound of marching hooves. Walking to the landing, he saw two plainclothes guards, with pens indicating they were both lieutenants, stalk into the foyer, scan the room, before locking on him. They both teleported to his side, a warning bell ringing in his head, as one of them, the mare, was an earth pony, and even for a lieutenant that was a highly specialized spell for them to have on command like that. The stallion guard turned to face him and inquired, not asked, but inquired, "Sergeant Regal Pants, in search of the upper middle second cadenza to Magi Gate." "Yes," he blinked, wondering what they were doing here. "Can I help you?" "Yes," the mayor said sharply. "You can come with us cooperatively for questioning, or you can come with us with a thematic restraint for questioning." Regal bristled at this, an angry retort building in his mouth, before the stallion narrowed his eyes and spoke again. "You are currently in a severe amount of trouble, Sergeant Pants. The captain is to interrogate you for information, and you are to report to the interrogation office shortly. Now again, how do you wish to appear before the captain?" "I am preparing my father's funeral here," Regal snapped. "If you can inform me what you wish to know, I can prepare a report for the captain afterwards." "You seem to be under the impression you can choose not to attend your interrogation," the mayor said. "We understand that you are currently grieving, and in fact we were giving you a kindness by offering to bring you in under your own volition." "I thank you," he said, blinking in confusion. Apparently they took that as his consent, as he was suddenly whisked away from his family manor and into a small room with a table, chair, and a chair in front of him, a chair on the opposite side, and an obvious one-way mirror to his right. Looking behind him, there was a door, and another one across from it. With little else to do, he took the seat next to him and sat down, eyeing the room with his ears popping. Regal frowned, surprised that this happened. He knew he was living. He knew he lived high on the mountain, but he had to be even higher than normal for his ears to pop, and the captain of the Cadenza guard offices were in the middle. In fact, the only captain's office that was this high was the... "Oh, sweet Luna!" he swore, as his eyes went wide, and as he realized exactly which captain those two guards were talking about. He was about to stand up when the door across from him opened up, and in walked Captain General Gentle Step of the Royal Guards. She was dressed in full proper service armor, polished to a regulation gleam, with a sword in a sheath attached to both of her croupiers. She stalked up to the table in a tempo that made the elites of the Cadenza guards look like recruits scrambling about, before halting directly in front of the table. She then reached up with both of her forehooves and took off her royal purple helmet and placed it down, perfectly centered on the table to the right of her. Gentle Step seemed to be more a lump of mass in a pony shape as opposed to being a pony. Her snout was blunt, with 3 scars trailing down to the left side of her mouth. Her body muscle mass seemed to belong to an earth pony that had trained themselves to the cusp of being unhealthy, as opposed to a unicorn. Her dull blonde mane was cut short as the books required them to be, but something seemed off, as no guard was that much of a stickler for regulation. Captain Standing Wall was lax on the Cadenza guards, and the Celestial guards were the worst, with holy corona blazing sun being their excuse to get away with bizarre mane styles. Looking at the Captain General, there seemed to be not an ounce of pony present, just something made of dragon steel with a dusty yellow coat of fur. And her eyes! Regal froze at her glare, seeing her put such disdain and cold fury in those gray eyes of hers. Her face might be neutral and calm at the moment, but her eyes caused his legs to shake and his mouth to tremble. Standing to what he hoped was a proper enough attention, he snapped a salute to her and began to say, "Sergeant Regal, I did not give you leave to speak or stand, Sergeant Pants," she said in a calm, emotionless tone, but her eyes narrowed a fraction, and he had to bite back a quake of fear from escaping his lips. Legs quivering, he retook his seat, which made a ton of scraping noises, while the Captain General took her seat opposite of him in a proper manner that made no noise. "Ma'am, I am your superior officer, not your acquaintance," Gentle Step said, as she reached into a satchel and placed down 7 folders in what he was willing to wager were perfect equal distance from each other. "However, given the severity of your transgressions, you may say and do whatever you wish, as you cannot possibly worsen your current situation." That was a trap. He knew that much. Best thing was to keep his mouth shut unless asked a question. She waited 10 seconds, staring at him intently before retrieving the central folder and opening it up. "Today, when you were sleeping during your shift of policing the upper Canterlot to middle Canterlot, 2nd Miyamura Cadenza to Magi of the Stars Gatehouse, there were 2 messages transmitted to your desk that you ignored in favor of focusing solely on the death alert of your father after you were awakened by Vittel, Nightblade, Windbreaker, Page-Turner, Rex, and Vix Lee," she said, as she placed 2 telegrams that had the seal of the Captain General on one, and the fire department of the district of his gatehouse on the other. The latter was a standard shutdown order after an arson was committed to keep those who did the deed from fleeing, but the other one... Regal opened his mouth to say he didn't understand why he saw Knight's name there, but caught himself in time as the Captain General was judging him. Wisely, he shut it and simply lifted the telegram from the Captain General and saw it was a high authority state sealment of all gatehouses in the West to prevent Knight and his group from passing, let alone the fact that this order was reserved for the most serious of crimes, and Knight was involved. He had let all of them pass through his gate. Gulping loudly, he placed the telegram back down as he began to understand exactly how doomed he was. He looked at her, with excuses running through his head, and his mouth opening and closing, as some part of his mind told him that the Captain General still had not given him permission to speak, and she would be angry if he spoke now. "I understand quite a number of things here, Sergeant," she said, her eyes boring into him. "I understand when this breach of protocol occurred. I know who exactly is at fault for allowing these individuals." She gestured to each folder as they opened up and showed information on Knight and each of his group's members. "To pass through a complete blockade. I know where they escaped into the middle, but two things I do not know is the what and the why. I want to know what was said to you that allowed you to pass them through without running a background check on them, and why you would do this. Inform me." Regal felt his heart begin to race truly now, as he knew exactly what the answer was, but he was terrified of what her reaction to it would be. Apparently, he took too long, because Captain General Gentle Step narrowed her eyes fully now. The full might of her disapproving glare focused on him, standing upright. "Perhaps I was not clear or coherent enough. I told you to inform me what made you betray your training and your oaths to office. There might need to be a complete overhaul to how the cadenza guards are trained if you are the norm and not the exception. Again, inform me what was promised to you that made you turn turncoat, Sergeant Pants, or I will retrieve the information through spells that can be either painless or painful. The punishments will be worse if you force me to use those spells. And Knight promised me the second chair!" he shouted, his fears getting the better of him. He saw her look at him, eyes slightly narrowed, before he spat out, "Sir!" She was still looking at him, his explanation not enough. "For the upcoming tournament of Sword Pony Ship of the Core District, sir. Nightblade is the captain of the team of the West, and he promised me that I would be the second pony after him, sir," Regal said, with his body doing its best not to tremble, with the Captain General simply looking at him, before she closed up all of her folders, placed them in her satchel, and then looked at him. "So if I am to understand you correctly, you betrayed all that you trained for and swore oaths of loyalty to, for a tournament that you yourself are ineligible to enter due to your professional training," Captain General Gentle Step said in her steady voice, which made the guilt he was feeling even worse. "When you became a guard and put on the armor... when you become a guard and wear the armor, you cease being the pony. You are one of many, the individual non-existent, because it takes one guard acting on their own intention for the entire system to fall apart. You put aside what is Regal Pants to become a guard of Equestria when you don that armor. Your life is inconsequential to those you are charged with protecting, the citizens of this city. Your reward is not the financial payment given to you, but knowing that countless ponies and citizens are alive because of what you did. By indulging in your own desires and being negligent in your tasks of reading simple telegrams, you have put untold numbers of lives at risk. Do you understand the ramifications of what you have done today may be the reason why ponies might die for years to come, with the end result of you sleeping through your duties and failing to follow through with your tasks being the destruction of everything we have built up, that your actions might be the ones that spell the end of Equestria itself? Even though she asked him a question, he knew she did not want him to answer her. She wanted for him to understand how fully he'd messed up, slamming into him the full width of his actions might have onto others. You are near incompetent, but you did not act with purposeful malice. You will report to the lower Canterlot Cadenza guardhouse for retraining, and you will be stationed there until such a time it is determined that you have learned how to be a proper guard. But that's the lower. I can't go. Regal stopped himself from speaking any further, but the damage was done, and the Captain General had now looked at him, raising an eyebrow, and she was leaning across the table. She stared into him before speaking with a hint of hardness in her voice. Congratulations. You have just proved me wrong. There was something that you could say that would make your situation worse. Captain General Gentlestep said to him, reminding him that she came from the lower south. In fact, when she was born, the room caved in, and she had been born in what was called the lowest. Unlike others that came from lower, she had been proud of where she had come from, and even owned a house down there that remained untouched by the dangerous criminal activity that lived nearby. Mainly because no one was crazy enough to risk drawing her wrath down on them. Not after she had single-handedly busted an entire drug ring that had broken a step on her porch when running through her backyard. Give me one reason as to why I should not take you through the door I came through and toss you out a window. Regal paused for all of 5 seconds before he had an answer. A wise pony told me that when you become a guard, you put the pony you are aside? Captain General looked at him for 5 seconds before softening her eyes, which was like a weight off his back. You demonstrate the boldness to use my own words against me, which implies you have the ability to think and act beyond your training. You might possess some potential, after all. She then stood up, with her magic placing her helmet back onto her head. You will report to the lower Canterlot Cadenza guardhouse for your retraining in 3 days. That should be sufficient enough time to put your affairs in order regarding the death of your father. Sir, Regal stood up, finding himself in his cleanest attention formation he had ever done, with a hoof pressed to his head in a salute. I need only the end of the day to finish the paperwork for my father's funeral. Once I am finished with my retraining, I can attend to my family's duty and obligations personally. Very well, Sergeant Pants, she said, returning the salute. Go through the door behind you, and there will be a pony to teleport you back into your family's manor. We will contact you regarding several questions about Nightblade and Page Turner in the future. Understood, sir, Regal replied, standing rock still. Dismissed, she said. As she fixed the straps for her helmet, Regal turned around and marched for the door, his chest swelling with pride and the assertion he had done the right thing today and he was on the right track. Gentle Step did not wait for the sergeant. Part 2, Gentle Step. Gentle Step did not wait for the sergeant to leave, already marching to the door where the rest of the captains were waiting. Pants had some merit to him. They would just need to break it out of him properly this time. Standing Wall needed to revise her training method to avoid situations where potentially good guards were allowed to fall into such solvency and... "So what's your take, Steps?" Full Moon Sweet Surprise asked her, her voice full of pep and energy, as she had removed her midnight blue helmet and was spinning it counterclockwise with her magic, her way of acting bored. If she had been spinning it clockwise, then she would actually be bored and not paying any attention. Sweet Surprise was aptly named. She may look and act like a fool at times, and that was part of her nature to be easygoing, but only an idiot would think the mare who held back a demon incursion on her own without her armor for several days before getting reinforced to take a 5-minute break before jumping back into the fray was a no-brain ditz of a unicorn. Still, she could curb her playfulness just a bit. "No doubt what you all saw," she told her captains, her eyes lingering briefly on Standing Wall, the Earth pony more frustrated than she was at the entire situation. Just made the mistake of passing the bit along when he should have been more focused on his job. Standing Wall bristled at this, her coat standing on end. "This is no remark on your standard of training, Standing Wall." "Agreed," Blazing Sun said, stroking his barrel-length beard. "Ever since you and that squad of your guards took on that mob of 1,000-strong Minotaurs, and came back with 300 Minotaurs marching in perfect formation to a Royal Guard stronghold, without losing a single one of your squad, no pony doubts your ability to train ponies." "Thank you," she said to Holy Corona, a brief smile on her face before facing Gentle Step again. "You were saying, Gentle Step?" "On Pants, the matter is resolved," she said, eyes flickering over them once more to impart how serious she was. "On the matter of these 6 individuals, the situation requires our immediate attention." "What is the charge against these 6 characters?" Magi Supreme Violet Lulamoon said, arcing an eyebrow at her. The mare was direct to the point of being near insolent, but she was cutting through the clutter to get to the heart of the matter. She was a hammer that would break into anything that threatened Canterlot, and there was a reason that her family had a trend of ascending to the position of Magi Supreme, and that no enemy had ever managed to invade by the northern district. "Treason and plans to commit regicide," she said, causing the 4 captains to hiss in surprise and anger. "It is one thing to be against the monarchy, but it is another thing to try and topple a government as large as ours," Blazing Sun grumbled darkly. "In my youth, they would simply protest before the palace, not try and burn it to the ground." "In your youth, the goddesses would be there to put a stop to such things," Sweet Surprise smirked to the Holy Corona, which got the stallion to smile briefly. Such as their relationship was, that the mare could tease the 130-year-old about his age in these times, without it being inappropriate. "In any case, I don't see any of these kids being traitors or kingslayers. The unicorn is a librarian, the pat pony is a hierarchized noble who is either around the Grand Library or the gym. The griffin is a hatchery griffin, with his vice being alcohol. The diamond dog is a shop owner that applied and passed for citizenship in Equestria. And the minotaur is the daughter of a shipyard master of Lydra. The only unknown we have is Awizodel, but we have no connection between her and the rest of them. In fact, the diamond dog lives in the east, and neither the unicorn, bat pony, griffin, or diamond dog has traveled outside of their districts before today." "She is correct, Step," Blazing Sun said, stroking his beard the entire length, his tell of uncertainty, and, due to his long tenure in office, the other captains tended to listen to him. Of course, that tended to happen when you spent several years in a war zone with dragons, and discovered you could in fact set a dragon on fire and cause it to explode. He had broken the dragon's morale when he had killed Garble the dragon all those years ago, and was the main reason why the dragons today did not dare attack Equestria. What proof do we have of such accusations? Turner has access to all sorts of information, including texts about revolutions and how a few toppled governments in the past, which she has been cataloging recently. Blade is an accomplished swords pony that does not have any guard training, to the point he fights in the unicorn bracket of his tournaments, and is strongly attached to Turner, more than likely to the point he would follow her in whatever course she takes. Tell me one hatchery griffin that does not have issues with the government, and I will have several bridges in North Canterlot to sell you. Rex is highly intelligent and an accomplished alchemist, with a possibly dangerous arsenal on his person. Vix Lee is an admitted unknown, but one does not travel all the way west from the Minos Islands for no reason, and I do not believe she traveled here to entertain others without bothering to do the proper paperwork. She took a breath, then continued. Vittel is the most suspicious of them all, as there is so little on her. The way she turned her body for the photographs, when the police took them in for that fight last night, indicates she was trying to shelter her identity, and my guards have interviewed several ponies celebrating the honor festival near where she, Rex, Breaker, and Vix Lee were all attending the same inn, and side by side no less. All of them reported that she avoided having her picture taken. Gentle Step lit her horn and projected what the guards had gathered for her, that was an overlay of the Western District. This is where they were arrested and held for the night alone, she said, tapping with her magic before tapping another place. This is the former Museum of Victory, and this is the place they took to reach the museum. And this is the path they took to reach the museum. She traced out a very complex pathway, with the captains frowning at the twists and turns. They met at least twice under suspicious situations, and the latest one involved the arson as a means to cover their escape. In addition, after conducting a search of their residence in the hotel, Blade Mansion, and the Great Library, produce odd documents indicating a connection. She watched open their folders. That's what it says. She watched open their folders to look at the nearly destroyed papers that had been found bearing each of their handwriting. While they might not be the true leaders of this conspiracy, it is evident they are part of one, or know of one, that has plans to assassinate the king. There was a clutter of agreement from her captains, with the Magi Supreme speaking first. So what is our approach? Wanted posters for them alive, and rewards for information on them, Gentle said, with them giving her a curious look. Alive will get them scared and running to their allies. Dead will put them on guard, and has the potential of forcing them to fight back for their lives, and have them get their first taste for blood. And if they are as dangerous as you suggest, we do not want them used to killing, Blazing Sun said, narrowing his eyes and standing still. Any indication to their current location? They are in Canterlot North. Oh, Canterlot West North, heading to North properly. Her eyes flicked over to the unicorn in charge of the protection of the Northern District and the farms beyond the city limits. I have several inspectors inbound there. If we can get just one of them to fold, we can get the other 5. They have been told to do what they feel will get Breaker to turn on them and fulfill any promise they give him, and your guards are to support the inspectors when they locate Breaker. If they do manage to get out of the northern district or middle Canterlot, we will double the guard presence along the gatehouses and reconvene to go over our plans to contain them. As it stands now, I want half a squad's worth back into all 156 gatehouses, as well as a team of engineers to inspect the walls and make sure there are no gaps. The Upper Canterlot barrier to the summit and the palace is barred to all those without proper paperwork and those we trust implicitly. She watched her captain nod at this. Any questions? They kept silent, telling her that they knew what was required of them, and needed no further instructions. Dismissed then, she said, saluting them all, each of her captains returning one back. Well, I guess I need to tell my guards to stop celebrating and get back to work, Sweet Surprise said, placing her helmet back on with a grin on her face. The ghost-white unicorn walked to the window and tipped her head. Until later, guys, she said, before jumping out of the window. A few seconds later, she flew past them on magically constructed bat-pony wings, with a laugh escaping her lips. Violet Lulamoon rolled her eyes, the pieces of her star-speckled armor briefly clanking against each other as she simply teleported away. Standing Wall tilted her head downwards, focusing on her earth pony magic before the ground swallowed her whole and began to transport her to the western district, showing that while there had been a rise in hollow ponies being born, there was an abundance of talented ponies being born as a counterbalance. My, you youngsters and your exits, Blazin chuckled, causing Gentle to raise an eyebrow. You do simply not know how to do it with style. He then teleported away with the after image of the holy sunburst hovering in the air. It was just bright enough to be annoying on the eyes, and Gentle saw that he had burned the sigil of Equestria into the floor with the words Equestria pro rege defendimus finum written around it. She frowned at this, knowing it would take the cleaning crew hours to scrub it out. Her eyes flicked back up and waited several seconds before speaking to the last occupant of the room. They stepped forwards, bowing their heads slightly. And what are my orders? As always, you are to act as my backup, Gentle said. I do not know their capabilities, but if they are to escape the city limits, they will no doubt circle to the west. The north is too flat and well defended. The east will end with the sea, and there is no chance that they can get to the Minos Islands before my navy guards can capture them. The south will lead them to the Badlands, and that leaves the most underdeveloped and unsettled west for them to flee. They have both the Griffin Lands and Quanbitzal Kingdom to run and hide in, but they wouldn't dare harbor wanted criminals from us. So if they get out of the city, I want you and yours to capture them and bring them in. Understood, the other said, nodding its head. Standard procedure? Of course, she answered. These 6 threaten my city, and I will not tolerate this. If they fail, you will not. Understand? She barked out, the figure opposite of her flinching before standing still. Your will be done, was the reply before they vanished, leaving Gentle Step alone. She then walked over to the open window and looked down at her view of the entire city of Canterlot. This was hers, and she would let nothing harm it. Closing the window, she turned around and began to march to her office with so many things that needed to be seen to before it was too late. Alright, I don't think Gentle Step is the villain. I think someone has been lying to her. Don't know exactly who, but from her perspective on this chapter, it seems like she believes what she's saying. I wonder who's the problem. I also wonder who that last person she talked to is. I don't know. I don't have any good guesses either. But my guess is that she is not the ultimate villain. She's just doing their bidding, unknowingly. Still wonder who the ultimate villain is, then. We don't know. Well, I hope you had a good time. Oh, right, translation. Blazon Sun's inscription was, "For Equestria and King we defend to the end." I noticed King! I recognized Reggie as King. Defendimus, defend, Phenum, end. Okay, yeah. Equestria, King, defend, final. For Equestria and King we defend to the end. Okay. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed. Bye, everyone.